and particularly Labor maintaining this attack or this line of questioning to the government, really, over how much in dollar terms is going to the highest income earners under the government's tax plans that's taken to this election. Well, the Prime Minister was also asked about this again today. He played down any suggestion the government was giving anything specific at all to high income earners.
Well, I can tell you, because we haven't changed anything for those earning on the top tax rate. In fact, those on the top tax rate under our plan will actually be returning 36% of the income tax revenue. They'll be paying 36% of total income tax revenue. What they pay today is 31%.
And that's true. The Prime Minister pointing there to the fact progressivity will remain, in his view, under these changes. The top's tax rate, though, will increase under the coalition from $180,000 to $200,000 a year. That's, in fact, already been legislated. And the government then plans to lower the 32.5% rate down to 30%. That's for those earning more than $37,000 a year. But of course, when you do that, it flows right up the income scale and ultimately gives a benefit to those on the highest incomes as well. As the budget papers show, the highest income earners would eventually enjoy tax cuts of more than $11,000 a year. But the Prime Minister's argument here on this change is that it's not just for those on top incomes. They benefit, sure, but so do plenty of those further down at the income scale as well. Either way, Labor suggested he was misleading voters with that comment today, just as the government suggested Bill Shorten was misleading voters with this comment on morning radio.
So we want to use some scarce and important taxpayer money to help with the childcare, to help with the health system, because everyone gets sick.
But will that money be coming from self-funded retirees?
No. The income that people get in retirement from their dividends or their shares, that won't be taxed. That the government will also now write you a tax cheque for about $30,000 on top of the $100 you get.
But that's for the difference in the rate, the tax rate.
No, it's not actually. What happens is if you get income from shares, dividends, in retirement, you don't get taxed on it.
The truth is that the income that Australians get from their dividends or their shares in retirement will be taxed under your plans, will be taxed heavily under your plans, because people will be taxed above what their effective tax rate would be otherwise. What does all this mean? What it means is that in terms of people's dividends, where they've been fully franked by companies, tax has already been paid. And where tax has already been paid, people then only get it back under the dividend imputation scheme if they've actually earned that back as part of what their nominal tax would otherwise be. To try to bring it into even simpler terms, this is a case where people shouldn't be paying any more on it unless it were any more than they would relative to any other income they got.
Confused? Well, you're probably not alone. Despite Simon Birmingham's best efforts to simplify this argument, it is a very complex area. Was Bill Shorten misleading listeners on radio when he said the income you get from your dividends won't be taxed? Well, technically no, but a more honest answer would be that if you're a self-funded retiree who pays no income tax and currently gets cash refunds for franked dividends, you won't get them anymore. That particular bit of your income would stop altogether. Of course, Labor is making all these changes to franking credits, to negative gearing, to capital gains tax and so on, so it can fund its big spending promises on health, childcare, schools, dental care and so on. Is all of this helping Labor, though, in the polls? Well, we certainly haven't seen a lift in Labor's support since many of these big spending plans were unveiled. Take a look at today's news poll, for example. Labor's primary vote over the last week has actually fallen a further point back, as you can see, now down to 36%, down 1. The coalition remains steady on 38%. We saw Palmer's United Australia Party down 1, and it looks like One Nation has picked that up, so they've swapped a point there. How does that wash out in terms of a two-party preferred result? Well, no change on last week's number. The Labor Party still leading the government 51 to 49%. Now, you could say that means that these big spending promises haven't had much effect. Maybe so. You could say that the government's all-out assault on Bill Shorten has kept his vote down. Maybe so. Bottom line is, whatever the reason, Labor is holding on to that narrow lead. The coalition needs to be doing better than that. Take a look at the trend here that we're looking at. It needs to be, even if it was 50-50, the government would be struggling to win because it actually needs to win seats to hold the majority. What does all this mean is likely to happen as we see that, yes, improvement through the campaign for the coalition under Scott Morrison, who's campaigned well, and Labor coming down, the result tightening, it still means a Labor win is most likely. A hung parliament is also quite likely as well here. A coalition victory, not impossible, not at all, but at this stage still unlikely. What it does mean is that this is still a real contest, though, in the final 2 weeks. It could still go either way. Labor win more likely, yes. Hung parliament quite likely as well. But it still could go either way, which, as I said at the start, means neither side can afford to stuff up. Neither side can afford to be hammered too much by their opponents in this. And it means that every big moment in the next 2 weeks will matter. And it looks like there will be a third leaders debate, which will certainly be a big moment on Wednesday night here in Canberra at the National Press Club. Now, the two sides are still haggling over the format of this. Labor wants moderator plus a panel of journalists. The government, the Liberal Party, would prefer just the moderator, who would be the president of the National Press Club right now, and that is Sabra Lane from the ABC. Scott Morrison's view on all of this is that, and we've seen this through his campaign, he wants to draw the focus of voters back to the contest between him and Bill Shorten. So he doesn't want too many others involved in this debate other than him, Bill Shorten, and a moderator. Labor, as I say, still arguing that there should be a panel of journalists there to put the questions to both of them. We'll see. Either way, have a look at what the two have to say about the prospects of a third debate on Wednesday night.
Well, I look forward to the next debate. Again, it'll be the third. We were happy to do it. I'm glad that the Leader of the Opposition finally agreed to do just that.
As a mundane, I'm giving you a bit of training on the boxing.
Look, it'll be another opportunity for Bill Shorten to explain who's paying the price of his policies.
What? We're the ones who want Wednesday's debate. Let me just, can I, Janie, hang on a sec. We wrote to the other people, the Liberals, 6 days ago. You know, they've just there's been some movement in the bush and they've materialised and said, oh, OK, if we have to, we'll do it. I'm not going to pull out of any debate.